Good afternoon. I'm Glenn Moore, Vice President of Marketing at ANX. In the next 20 minutes or so, I'm going to touch on the need for PCI compliance and some practical yet easy to implement steps that retail locations can take to begin the PCI journey. I'll conclude by briefly touching on the areas where we can help here at ANX. Now, you can argue that some compliance standards have dubious real-world value to business. Hey, it's political season, so why shouldn't people bring pressure to bear in order to eliminate PCI compliance? It's probably killing jobs, right? Well, PCI compliance is one of the instances, perhaps rare these days, where the standard itself is vitally important. If we eliminated PCI compliance, it would be businesses that would be killed and not jobs. The PCI compliance standard was born by business necessity and not by some government bureaucrat. In fact, the government has nothing to do with PCI compliance at all. It was created by the consortium of major credit card companies due to the crushing financial impact of credit card theft. And in the case of PCI compliance, there's a clear business imperative. Credit card theft continues to be a huge problem that's costing American businesses billions of dollars a year. And every business that accepts a credit card is a target. But as you'll see in the next few minutes, franchise locations are the sweet spot for cyber criminals. Restaurants and retailers are really the clear target. An astounding 79% of data breaches involve hackers targeting these types of businesses. Here's a closer look at reported data breaches by industry. The food service industry is far and away the most victimized with 52%. Retail is second with 27%, and no other industry has a double-digit percentage. The distribution hasn't always been this lopsided. The restaurant sector's share of these breaches climbed from 21% to 41% over the past 5 years. And cybercrime has thrived in this sector because it's lucrative. Each breach can yield thousands of credit cards, and it's relatively easy. We'll get into that in more detail in a few minutes. Drilling deeper into the breach problem indicates that level 4 merchants are being victimized the most. Why? These locations have less sophisticated defenses. Cybercriminals deploy a host of both low and high-tech tactics to steal information. Now let's examine data breaches by system type. Software point-of-sale systems leads the way with 67% of reported compromises. Criminals target the data stored on premise servers and point-of-sale devices. Shopping cart systems come in a distant second at 25%. Other back-end components represent 77% of compromises. Here's a closer look at a typical retail establishment. Hackers probe for weaknesses in security technology and configuration. Many successful attacks these days involve wireless. A rogue access point is a wireless access point that has been installed on a secure company network without authorization. Anyone with access to the premises can install an inexpensive wireless router that can potentially allow access to a secure network. Once on the network, hackers target retail servers and point-of-sale systems. Another growing vulnerability is the rise of Android malware on handheld devices. Several factors make Android vulnerable to cybercrime, and those include rapid growth, freely available documentation about the platform, and weak screening at the Google market, making it easy to upload malicious programs. So what does all this mean for the franchise structure? Well, huge risk with crippling consequences. A cost of a single data breach can easily exceed $200,000. For starters, it costs around $20,000 for an internal forensic audit. And then there's the cost to reissue cards, which can reach $50 per card. And then you add in fines, lost business, and higher operating costs. An astonishing 76% of small businesses that experience a customer data breach go out of business within a year. Perhaps the biggest impact of a data breach involves damage to the corporate brand. That's sometimes difficult to measure, but the effects are tangible. On average, a company brand suffers a 12% loss of its value when just one of its locations suffers a publicized data breach. Customers get spooked, which results in lost sales. That impact easily exceeds the direct costs of fines and card replacement. It also takes a year or more for the brand to recover. Okay, so it's really no secret that credit card theft is a large and growing problem, and that small retail locations are the target of choice these days. What's not as obvious is how helpful PCI compliance is at preventing data loss. First, I'd like to point out that PCI compliance is different than security. Compliance is a static measurement of security at a given point in time. Security, on the other hand, is an ongoing process of measurement, inspection, and improvement. Being PCI compliant definitely plays an important role in security. The 12 major requirements do a good job of addressing key security vulnerability areas. Completing these requirements means that you're paying attention to security. And when you're paying attention, the risk of becoming a victim is greatly diminished. The real challenge then is how to execute. With PCI compliance, the devil really is in the details. Depending on which self-assessment questionnaire applies to your business, fully meeting the 12 requirements involves over 200 audit procedures. That presents a huge challenge for most retailers. They often lack the resources or expertise to tackle PCI. Others hire resources to help them become PCI compliant, but then fall off the wagon after the self-assessment questionnaire is completed. A continual effort is needed to minimize the risk of data breach. Retailers that only cram once per year to pass the SAQ are left vulnerable from practices like not changing passwords, not watching access logs, not paying attention to who has remote access, and not training new employees on PCI awareness. Most of you on the webcast today are concerned with implementing PCI compliance across a number of small locations. I'm going to focus my next set of remarks on actions you can take to help your locations become PCI compliant. Each of these actions can be implemented in 30 days or less without the need for large expenditures. Now, this isn't a comprehensive list, but I think you'll find these initiatives to be worth your time. Now, for the corporate compliance officer, ensuring that franchise locations are PCI compliant is a lot like herding cats. Both are magnificent beasts, but are extremely difficult to control. Even well-intentioned franchise locations find the complexity of information security and PCI compliance very daunting. They lack the expertise and resources of larger businesses. And for many corporate franchise models, PCI compliance is not something that has been operationalized into the franchise model. They're being told from different parties to become PCI compliant, but are not provided much guidance on how to do so. As I discussed earlier, low-tech data breaches are extremely common. They rely on an uneducated frontline at the merchant location. The single best step that you can take is to implement a PCI awareness training program for all employees that handle credit cards. There are some wonderful programs out there to make it easy to train employees. Now, we happen to have a great online training tool that enables corporate compliance officer to immediately deliver training to all franchise employees and know the status of completion. But that's really not the main point here. The point is to implement some type of awareness training as quickly as possible. A good awareness training program should help employees understand areas such as, what's the definition of sensitive data? How do you handle sensitive data? What precautions should employees take to physically protect equipment? How to dispose of sensitive data? What is suspicious behavior? And what should they do if they spot suspicious behavior? Let's take a quick closer look at the type of employee training that can make an immediate impact on risk reduction. I think showing some examples will illustrate that point. Here's a screenshot from the ANX Online PCI Awareness course. It's designed to provide easy-to-digest information in both video and text format. There's also quiz questions that pop up during the course to ensure that employees are grasping the content. This screen describes the highly successful but low-tech practice of dumpster diving. Knowledge is power. Making sure that employees are aware of this practice might not be sexy, but it sure drives value. This shot raises awareness of locking up sensitive data. Another common exploit is falling victim to scams where passwords are disclosed. Raising the issue that no legitimate person will ever ask for your password is an important training point. Another common mistake that many employees make is disabling malware software or personal firewall settings. That opens the door for keystroke loggers and other forms of malware. Employees need to understand the ramifications of turning off these settings. Email scams are especially effective with people who aren't suspicious enough. Teaching employees not to open email from unknown sources is important. They also need to be mindful of clicking on suspicious-looking links and attachments. Short quizzes like this can help cement the understanding. Participation and comprehension reports show both the franchise owner and corporate compliance manager the status of training. Another commonly overlooked knowledge point is how to fully delete information. Again, seems like common sense, but not every employee understands how to properly delete information. Another helpful area of training is how to spot and report suspicious-looking behavior. People posing as vendors or contractors asking unusual questions is a common ploy. I think you get the point of training. Don't delay on this one. Find a vendor to help your franchise locations get it done. We'd love to help, but at least find someone to partner with on this effort. Okay, the next simple recommendation is to standardize your remote access approach. Weak remote access is one of the top root causes for data breach. Many employees and store managers use the least expensive version of go-to-desktop type remote access. While those solutions are easy to implement, they don't provide enough safeguards against malware transmission. I have a hot-off-the-presses example of weak remote access. Yesterday, Symantec told its customers to stop using PC Anywhere remote access until a new version is released. Theft of their source code puts users at risk of being hacked. It's important to have remote access that ensures that endpoint computers are running the latest anti-malware software, are patched to the latest operating system revisions, and have personal firewall turned on. Remote PCs that don't meet these conditions should never be allowed to connect to the store environments where sensitive data is stored. Keystroke loggers and other self-extracting programs can traverse the infected PC to the merchant server. It's also important for remote access users to use two-factor authentication, which greatly diminishes the risks associated with hacked access. Another important feature is availability of remote access logging and reporting. Business owners should be taught to review remote access logs on a weekly basis to see who's accessing merchant data and when. That leads to the last point. It's critical to restrict remote access to individuals that only need it. The corporate compliance manager can easily improve remote access by educating franchise owners on which remote access methods and vendors are viable. Don't leave this one up to the franchise. Dictate an approach or a list of approved vendors. Now, ANX has a cloud-based remote access solution that works with existing hardware. It provides unsurpassed endpoint security, 24/7 support for end users, and can be deployed in hours. If you haven't paid attention to remote access, contact us for a demonstration. My third recommendation is to mandate or recommend a common firewall approach across the franchise community. Underpowered or improperly configured firewalls is a frequent exploited area. Make sure franchise locations have deployed a business-class firewall and not a product designed for the consumer marketplace. Firewalls should include a robust set of unified threat management capabilities like anti-malware, intrusion prevention, and URL filtering. While those capabilities are also provided in desktop antivirus programs and in the browser itself, doing that type of malware inspection at the gateway provides another layer of protection in case employees turn off software on the PC. It's also a great idea to publish firewall configuration guidelines that reflect your environment. Provide the franchise owner something they can give to their technical person or vendor. There are some good firewall policy templates available. Sit down with the corporate technical staff, fill one out, and send it to the franchise technical staff. Now, I'll warn you, this may stir it up a bit. This type of directive may be perceived as too much technical detail for some locations. However, they'll start to understand that managing to this level of technical detail is important to the business. They'll start asking more questions and engage the right local resources. This brings me to my next practical tip. Help the franchise locations develop a written policy. As you saw a few slides ago, lack of a written security policy is a common denominator of businesses that get breached. Make it easy on them. Give them a complete security policy and let them just fill in the blanks. There needs to be two sets of security policy, one for the employee and the other for the company infrastructure, and both are really important. Here's an example of a company security policy template that we provide with our service. It's done in Microsoft Word, so it's easy to do a search and replace. Providing this template to your franchises and encouraging them to use it will spark the right conversation. They won't understand all the components, but they'll at least get in the game. Developing a written security policy is well outside the experience and resource level of most franchise locations. They'll really appreciate the guidance from corporate compliance on this one. My last simple recommendation is to create a program to actively monitor SAQ status. Get everyone using the same tool to generate their SAQs. Many Level 4s will struggle greatly with the SAQ. However, getting them started is more than half the battle. Make a goal to have every location start their SAQ using a common tool set within the next 60 days. Then monitor that directive. Partner with a Level 4 provider like ANX to circle back with the franchise locations that aren't using the tool. A good partner will do that. If you're partnering with someone who just provided a portal tool and then walked away, it's time to revisit that relationship. Demand more. You'll be significantly reducing the risk when 100% of your locations have started an SAQ. Recognize this as a significant achievement. Send some percentage achievement notes congratulating the starters and encouraging the laggards. The final milestone is 100% completion of the SAQ. That's going to take a lot more time. And don't get discouraged. Get determined and set reasonable goals with a cooperative Level 4 partner. Okay, now to finish up here, I just want to offer a few comments briefly about how ANX can help and really who we are as a company. So we've been around for over 12 years. We're a managed security and compliance company, and we started out in the automotive industry. We built and maintain a large network that connects all the suppliers with the manufacturers. And that network's used for design collaboration as well as supports transactions between these different companies. Over the years, we've acquired a number of small security and compliance companies with unique technologies. And we've kind of woven it all together, done a lot of internal development, and today we have a very broad portfolio of security and compliance offerings. And our primary sectors are the quick service restaurant, retail, hospitality, automotive, as well as we have a big presence in healthcare, both with clinical labs and also with large hospitals and other types of providers. So on the PCI side of things, we are an authorized scanning vendor, and we are also a qualified security assessor. So we can help throughout the entire PCI lifecycle, covering scoping, assessment, remediation, certification, and maintenance. And for the smaller locations in a franchise system, we offer a convenient bundle, which we call our Secure PCI bundle. And it takes a lot of necessary capabilities such as managed security, data breach protection, PCI support, and remote access. We put it together into one monthly package that we charge. And then to the corporate location, we provide assistance in rolling the program out, as well as visibility tools in our portal. So the corporate location can see the status of these programs and direct us to obtain deeper penetration of these programs. For the larger locations, we have a true PCI service, and it's basically all of our PCI portal services with all the features activated. So in addition to SAQ assistance and the online training for both awareness users, risk owners, and IT staff, and a complete scanning management engine. We also have remediation and task management capabilities, and that allows others in the company to log what they're doing for remediation items, and it gives you one place to go to manage all the PCI compliance efforts. And finally, we have a full-service PCI consulting practice. So we put those qualified security assessors to work solving problems such as PCI gap analysis. We do quite a few report on compliances for large companies, and we also do penetration testing. So whatever the need is, we've got the right types of security engineers and compliance engineers to step in and help out. So that's all I have today. Thank you for your attention. I encourage everyone to join our next webcast, which is Tuesday, January 31st, and we'll be talking about next generation of PCI in retail. So please visit ANX.com to find out more information on our products. And again, thank you very much for your attention.